Hold up a minute, y'all. Fingers. Focus. We live? Hey, nah, I ain't about to go back and forth with you if you don't want to be here. You can go ahead, go ahead and leave. I got this, you know what I'm saying? I done held it down the last couple of times. Yeah, I got this. You know what I'm saying? I understand it was last minute, but if you don't want to be here, bro, don't worry, I got it. You know what I'm saying? I know how to run it myself. Nah, matter of fact, go ahead, man. I got it. I ain't about to go back and forth with you, man. Just go ahead. You know what I'm saying? I'll holler at you when Av get back, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I got this. But anyway, uh excuse me everybody, excuse me nation. It's Daycon here, you know what I'm saying, here at Build by Nation Studios. Um yeah, and we back with another To Whom It May Concern. I apologize for coming on like that, but I had to do what I had to do. So like I said, we back with another To Whom It May Concern. It's been a minute, but I want to start this off by saying if you didn't get a chance to watch the last piece of content we dropped off on our page, go check that out. The Word on the Ave with Avenue, you know what I'm saying? He delivered a well delivered message in that last video. Check it out, you know what I'm saying? That's what we do here. We like to present different possibilities, different objective topics, you know what I'm saying, and leave it up to y'all's interpretation of how you feel about it, you know what I'm saying. Really, we love your feedback on how you feel about the topics that we touch on. But yeah, definitely go check that out because I actually watched it a couple times myself, and I'm really amazed by, you know what I'm saying, the skill set of being able to do what he did, you know what I'm saying? So go check that out for sure. But yeah, we're going to get into this episode of To Whom It May Concern. I tried to prepare, you know what I'm saying? Actually, I did a video last night, but, as it's been the last few times, which I tried to get a little assistance, tonight, but you see what happened. And like I said, I want to apologize to y'all. But yeah, hopefully this time we got sound, you know what I'm saying? And we can get this video out. I'm gonna keep it short as possible so y'all can go ahead and get up, get on with y'all day. If it's nighttime, get you some good night rest, whatever time you watching this, I just, want to come and try to give y'all some gems or something that y'all can latch on to. And hopefully you can, gain something from what I'm talking about here tonight. Oddly enough, what I'm talking about tonight kind of coincides with what you heard when I first got on, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to get it right into it. Let me get into my notebook. I actually wrote a couple of notes this time around. And what we going to touch on tonight, like I said, hopefully I can deliver it. I'm still working on my delivery. I ain't as good as Av, but you know what I'm saying? We're going to get there. We working on it. And we just going to continue to get better each and every time we do this, man. Yeah. But anyway, the topic that I wanted to touch on tonight is get comfortable with not feeling like you have to defend yourself. And when I say this, I'm talking about verbally. I'm not talking about physical altercations. You know what I'm saying? If it comes down to that, then you got to defend yourself. Don't not defend yourself if somebody's trying to do physical harm to you. But what I'm talking about tonight is, try to avoid getting into verbal spit spats with people, whether it's a loved one or it's a coworker or somebody you might not, a stranger on the street. Just avoid that at all costs if possible. You know what I'm saying? I would say try to get good with evading those type of things and not putting yourself in those types of situations. But sometimes you can't avoid it. But what I wanted to say is just get comfortable with not having to defend yourself. If you do find yourself in those type of situations, let your words be final. Try to not leave it open to debate. You know what I'm saying? Try to end the thing as soon as possible. That's what you want to do in a fight anyway. You know what I'm saying? So if you can, make your statements final and let people marinate on your words, you know what I'm saying? That's the best way to go about it. And I'm not just trying to give you strategy on how to win a argument, but I'm just saying that effectively you want to get out of a debate as fast as possible because as you know, sometimes when you find yourself in those situations, especially with someone that you have a fondness for or a love for, you know what I'm saying, when you get into those verbal spit spats, whatever, it might start off, somewhere innocent, and it might progressively get more aggressive the longer that you carry on with it. So like I said, I would say try to avoid that at all costs. But in the case that you do have to get into them, just get to the point and be final with your words. You know what I'm saying? Allow people to marinate on your words. Really, that's the most effective way. Like I said, because when you allow people to marinate on your words and not feel like you have to defend every thing that they try to pick apart, sometimes when you leave it in that frame, that person that you were debating with, they will have to sit on it and they have to think about it and marinate on it. And sometimes they really find themselves that, maybe they were out of line, you know what I'm saying? And when you do find yourself trying to defend yourself, a lot of times you're really weakening your original point. The more, because most times people want to drag you into a debate, they want to drag you into it and they want to pick apart your your stance. And of course you don't want that to happen, you know what I'm saying? So the more you defend yourself, the more your stance weakens. And you just lose. At the end of the day, you really just lose the point. You might find yourself arguing about something totally different from the original point, and you never find yourself coming to a good solution for whatever the argument or debate was about. And like I said, another reason to avoid those type of things is because like I said, as things get progressively more heated, there's always a point where, and most of the time, people are not ready to get into debates. So it becomes more so of a situation where it becomes a roast battle or something, You might end up saying things that you don't really mean in a moment just because things have got heated and you don't really have a defense or whatever it is, or you're not prepared to go 30 rounds at this moment. So the best thing and the next thing that you could possibly do is start hurling out insults, you know what I'm saying, at each other. And those things, when I say those things could lead to finality, you know what I'm saying? You might say something in a moment that might be hurtful. I know they got that statement that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. But we gotta be honest, words cut, you know what I'm saying? Words are like swords. And that's just the fact of the matter, because most people aren't emotionally stable, where they're able to accept criticism a lot of times. So you really got to be careful with those type of situations. Some people are able to debate, effectively, And even though it might not be solution based, maybe they could come to some understanding, but most times that's not gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? It just becomes a verbal sparring, or what I'm saying. And like I said, sometimes you can go too far. You might not be able to come back from certain things. So you just want to avoid it at all costs. Like I said, it does like literally leave your. Just imagine like juice. You know what I'm saying? You remember that? But this might be showing age, but back in the day they had a concentrate that you could get from McDonald's and for parties or whatever, that you get a little gallon of concentrate and you can make fruit punch for your party or whatever. So it's kind of like that. You get that juice and it was delicious for real. I ain't gonna lie. I never personally got to have a McDonald's party, but I've attended a couple in my youth, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, when I'm just thinking about that because, like I said, when you get in an argument, and you continue to go on and on, it's like adding too much water to your concentrate, and you just lose. You're constantly losing flavor. You're losing the essence of why you even decided to get into whatever it is that you got into. You know what I'm saying? So. And a lot of times, I will also say, no matter why, it's also a good reason to avoid those type of situations, because you got to realize, and if you're able to be real with yourself, you know that a lot of the time when you enter into a debate with somebody, you already have a predetermined judgment. You know what I'm saying? So you're not trying to get the other person's side. You're just trying to prove them wrong. And like I said, that's not a solution based situation. That's very unproductive for both parties, and it's just nonsense, to be honest. So like I said, I did what was I said next? Look at my notes. I did actually take some notes tonight. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Let's touch on this before I get into a story that I wrote, and because I realized, and when I recorded last night, I was like, I really need to be more descriptive and give examples, and this is me defending myself, I guess. You know what I'm saying? I'm explaining myself when I don't need to. I can just let it happen. But this is another example. But yeah, and when you say your words, and if you're going to use these words, be sure and confident in the words that you say. And if a person doesn't like it, you know what I'm saying, and they feel like they can't deal with it, allow them to feel how they feel. Allow them to remove themselves if necessary. Whatever the case is, cause and effect, you know what I'm saying? Be comfortable in letting it be what it is. So, yeah, we're going to get into this story. I actually wrote this morning, and I'm not going to say it's good because I ain't actually read it through, but we're just going to get right into it. You know what I'm saying? I wrote this at work, and hopefully it can provide an example for what it is that I'm trying to say in some manner. So let's get into it. In this scenario, this is a 3-person scenario. And of course, there's always different types of scenarios that can, of course, it could be between two people, 2 people in a relationship. It manifests in different ways, but in this example that I wrote about, this is a 3-person example, and this is one that I personally don't like. and we're gonna get into it. All right. So the story starts with two. It's a three-person story. It starts with two, and then the third person comes later. And I'll go ahead and give you the names of the people that I included in the story: Apollo, Randy, and Lamont. I don't know why I came up with them names, but those are the names that came to my mind when I wrote it. So we're going to stick with Apollo, Randy, and Lamont. All right, let's get into it. So Randy is new to the job. What job there? What place of employment do we want to use for this example? I'll let y'all fill in the blank. You know what I'm saying? I wrote this story. I didn't really go into detail. I just wanted to get the point across. But anyway, Randy is new to a job and he's eager to learn the ropes, for his new job. Apollo, which is a veteran at the job, he's established. He's been on the job for 3.5 years. One of the longest tenure employees at the job. You know what I'm saying? Lamont is also new to the company, but not new to the field which they work in. He has many years in the field, actually more than Apollo, which is the veteran at this current job. But Lamont got hired on at a slightly higher position than Apollo, even though Apollo has been here longer, but that's because Lamont has been in the field longer, even though he hasn't been working for this company as long as Apollo. We just preface this and say that Lamont and Apollo have had previous experience at the company that Lamont came from, that Lamont has just left due to its closing. So, job closed, and now Lamont is here at Company X. I think no, I didn't skip nothing. But Apollo was let go from that same company 4 years prior, due to a verbal altercation between him and Lamont. They got into a verbal sparring at the job, which is kind of like what we talked about. And from that, Apollo was released of his duties, and he was out of a job for a few months. You know what I'm saying? Apollo still has resentment for Lamont in the field that left him jobless for a few months until he found this job. Well, this is Randy's first day of training, and the boss introduces Randy to Apollo, letting him know that Apollo would be his trainer, the one that's showing him the ropes. I'm sorry if this ain't an entertaining story, but stick with me. We gonna get to the point. The boss also informs Apollo that he would have another person joining him the next day. He also states that this person is experienced and wouldn't need the amount of training that Randy needed. He would just need to be shown the particular processes of this company. The boss then states the company and the name of the new employee, Lamont. It instantly registers with Apollo that Lamont is the person he speaks of is the one that got him fired from his last job. And Apollo has never taken accountability for his part in the altercation that led to his ultimate release. So Apollo, he still has a resentment for Lamont, because he was ultimately fired for, the altercation that they got into from his job. So of course, him hearing that name, it just brings up that resentment and that feeling that he felt them for like 4 years ago. You know what I'm saying? It kind of just makes it fresh again. So of course, he has a natural resentment that is renewed because he knows that Lamont is now coming to this job. So he still holds a grudge to this day. Lamont, on the other hand, has changed a lot since that day. Possibly because of that day, you know what I'm saying? It was a real heated altercation between the both of them. And he ultimately understands that a man no longer has a paycheck. You know, he don't know the outcome of how it affected Apollo, but he felt bad about it. So he got into he began to read and just search for better, search for ways to better himself after that altercation, you know what I'm saying? So he poured a lot into himself to, become a better person after that altercation. So it affected him, Lamont, he shows a little empathy, you know. Lamont outlook is totally different from that day of the altercation. Apollo, on the other hand, is infuriated by the news, and therefore it affects Randy's first day of training because instead of him giving him good focused training, he's steady fuming about the upcoming events of him having to train his what's the word, his nemesis. So of course he's not giving his full focus into giving Randy the proper training that he needs to be the best employee that he could possibly be. So now, instead of training, why did my I don't know why I don't know why that camera just went off, but anyway, we're gonna keep on going with this one. So instead of giving Randy the proper training that he needs, to become the best employee that he could possibly be, he's not, Randy is now receiving a backstory of Lamont and how he should watch out for himself. You know what I'm saying? Watch his back around Lamont. And how there's the feud had left him jobless, and of course Randy, new to a job, he don't want to end up in the same fate, so naturally he starts to get a natural resentment for Lamont just by word of mouth. You know what I'm saying? One second, let me get this camera back rolling. That's why I could use the fingers, but hey, it is what it is. You can never beat me, fingers. I know you want to be me, but you can't be me. Keep working at it. I wish the best for you, but what I'm saying, you don't want to help me out for whatever reason. It's all good. I can do it all because I'm good at what I do. But anyway, back to the story. I hope I'm let's kind of backtrack just a little bit, to pick up where I left off. So now, instead of receiving the training that Randy would need for him to be the best employee that he possibly can, he's now receiving a backstory about Lamont and why he should, how a feud between Apollo and Lamont left Apollo jobless for, a few months. And, so he's getting a backstory about that. So of course, Randy is now tainted with information Apollo has given him, and now himself has developed a resentment for Lamont, which he has never met. Now that's crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Allowing somebody to key you up like that, you know what I'm saying? Especially for a person that you don't even know, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. We're going to keep on going. So we fast forward. It's the next day. Lamont is now joining Apollo and Randy on the training, you know. Mind you, Lamont has changed a lot, you know, from that day. He's a changed individual. He has no grudges, and he almost forgot about that day somewhat, you know, even though he grew a lot from the situations of that day. He just kind of let it go. You know, that's the best thing you could do whenever you find yourself in altercations with people, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just gotta let things go and let it be what it be, you know, let it be what it is in that moment, you know what I'm saying? Don't hold on to grudges, you know. People change, man. People change. So as training progresses, Lamont starts to notice a coldness from Randy and Apollo. You know, it doesn't hit him in that moment. A few days later, saying it. He accepts it for a while as the days of training commences. And then one day it clicks on why he's been getting this coldness from Randy and Apollo. And especially Randy, a person that he has never met. So Lamont, in that time of change, he's learned that it's good to confront things direct and diffuse them instead of allowing them to grow and get to the point, that the prior altercation had gotten into, years prior. So Lamont understands that, you don't let things continue to bubble up and get to a point that it's out of control and there's no going back, you know what I'm saying? So this particular day, it's lunchtime, Randy goes to McDonald's, to meet his family, for lunch, 30-minute lunch. McDonald's about 30 minutes away. So I don't know how he figured that, he was going to have time to make it to McDonald's and back in that time. But, Randy gonna do what he gonna do. Sometimes you just got employees like that, and you just gotta let them be who they are. You know what I'm saying? Let people be who they are. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, Lamont pulled Apollo to the side, and they on the lunch break, and they settled their differences. You know what I'm saying? They had a conversation away from Randy. Of course, he's at McDonald's eating his quarter pounder. What's that new sandwich that they got at McDonald's that the CEO act like he wanted to eat but he didn't want to eat? He's eating that sandwich, you know what I'm saying? He done got him a meal, and he's sitting there enjoying himself. It took him 30 minutes to get there. But anyway, back at the job site, because Lamont and Apollo, they're seasoned veterans, you know what I'm saying? They bring their lunch. You know what I'm saying? Good employees, you know what I'm saying? They don't have to leave the job site in order to get nourishment for their lunch. And they eat light lunches. They don't eat heavy lunches that's gonna have them satiated and tired. But anyway, they settled their differences in this time, you know what I'm saying? It didn't 100% fix the issues with Apollo, but he came, he has enough understanding and empathy, and Apollo laid it on him to where he um, gave a bird's eye view of the situation, letting them know that, there's things that happened and transpired around the situation with them getting, into it, and what ultimately led to them getting into an altercation wasn't necessarily just because they had a personal vendetta against each other. It's just because, things led to, just led to that point. And sometimes it happens like that. So, of course, they got to an understanding, where they can work, have a working situation where it wouldn't get out of hand and, nobody would lose their job. You know what I'm saying? And, of course, Randy is now headed back, but lunch is over at this point. So he don't know what has transpired, with Randy, with Lamont and Apollo, It's a whole, it's an hour later. He had to drive back, you know what I'm saying? It's an hour. It's supposed to be a 30-minute lunch, and now it's an hour and 15, and now Randy just dragging his ass back to where he's supposed to be, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. So they was able to reach a grown man understanding to where they could work in the same environment and be okay. So that's good, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes having to talk with someone can diffuse a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? Don't let things fester if at all possible, you know what I'm saying? If people have empathy and a level of understanding, then things can be diffused, at least to a certain extent, to be able to work alongside each other or just in the same environment, exist in the same environment, And I wrote more, but we're gonna try to wrap this up. We're gonna fast forward a little more. Of course, Randy drags in a few, and he still has a resentment for Lamont, and why? You know what I'm saying? And he sees Apollo and Lamont working in the same environment, and not, but he just has a natural resentment that he's built up. They say you never get a second chance to make a first impression, even though Lamont never got a chance to make a first impression with Randy. He just already had his own preconceived, judgment on Lamont, and it's all good because, long as Lamont felt that as long as him and Apollo were able to get to a point of being able to work together, it doesn't even matter what Randy has. He can feel however you want to feel, and that's what I said, man. Allow people to feel how they want to feel. If you want to feel, you want to be a certain type of way towards me or you, whoever you want to do it, hey, it's all good. Feel how you want to feel. And so, but fast forward, Randy, old green ass, he only lasted 6 months, so it wasn't no reason to even try to reconcile or try to change his mind, you know what I'm saying? So he just let that be, and Randy eventually, being the sorry employee that he is, he found himself out of a job, what I'm saying? Whether that was him being fired, what I'm saying? Y'all can help me on the story. And I don't even know if this story is good, but the moral of the story is that Randy is a loser. And I don't know if that's the moral of the story, but me just reading that back, I feel like Randy is a loser because he allowed Apollo to put a key in his back, and how you gonna let somebody put a key in back and put a put their program into you that's not yours, what I'm saying? So Randy is a loser, man. Fuck Randy, man. Fuck him, man. And if you're a Randy out there, man, fuck you. Excuse my language, but don't be like Randy, man. Randy is a terrible person, you know what I'm saying? And if you work at a job site where you get a 30-minute lunch, don't be trying to go drive 30 minutes away to somewhere you know that you're gonna have to sit there and wait, you know what I'm saying? Be like Apollo and Lamont and bring your lunch to work. You know what I'm saying? Make an effort to be a good employee. But yeah, that's the moral of the story, man. I just wrote that down, and just if I'm Lamont in this situation, as long as I got an understanding with the main person that I have history with, you know, whatever happens with Randy, who I have no history with or understanding, and he just has a natural resentment for me and never allowed me to make a first impression, and he just, has a preconceived notion about Lamont. You know what I'm saying? You just got to let people fester in that. Some people can't handle that, and they feel like they'll want to fix that. Like, I'm not the person you think I am. But that's the wrong thing to do, because no matter how hard you try to, with a lot of people, to change the narrative they have on you, it's dang near going to be impossible to do. And so you just got to be comfortable with not having to defend yourself. Allow them to feel however they want to feel. You know what I'm saying? That's basically what I want to say. And you got to think about this. Like, take this. I hope you take this away from this. A lot of the times we try to put people in a box of our own understanding. You know what I'm saying? Because we all have our own experiences, our own backgrounds, that all these things, they come together to form our perspective of life, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, unless you have the knowledge to know better, or just have this knowledge to understand that no two people have the same perspective. Like, me seeing through my eyes is always going to be different from you looking through your eyes. We all are like our own worlds, and so we got to understand that we're not going to view the same situation the same way a lot of times. You ever been to the casino? You ever go to the casino and you see, of course they got and penny machines, whatever you want to call it, the slot machines. You see different types of slot machines, some with set jackpots, you know what I'm saying? But the real pretty ones that you find yourself attracted to a lot of times are the ones that have them progressive jackpots, you know what I'm saying? And so you seeing this jackpot just progressively going up, you know what I'm saying? And you want some of that money, of course. And so, hold up 1 second. Yeah, so you want that jackpot, especially when you see it continuously going up slowly and progressively. You got to understand that, that kind of translate to individuals, you know what I'm saying? It translates in the fact that each and every moment we're constantly evolving, you know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of a person, you know what I'm saying? We're not like technology. Even though I know we tend to feel that technology is more advanced than we are, you got to understand that we are the most advanced technology, because where technology has a shelf life, and we have a shelf life to a certain extent, but it's not the same way that the technology we use on a daily basis has one. like your phone. Your phone might only get firmware updates for 5 years, you know what I'm saying, before you need to upgrade it and get you something else. As to where you, as a human or a spiritual being, you have the capabilities as long as you got breath in your body, and even probably past that. But we're not going to go into that. You have the ability to continue to get better each and every day. And so that's what I'm saying, is that you got to really understand that, allow people to be who they are. And if we're referring to progressive jackpot, just understand that people progressively change and they're evolving and right in front of your face. I remember a situation where someone, and you got to be careful with giving people advice, whether you know it or not. But I think I could recall a situation where someone asked me for advice. And so I naturally tried to oblige or whatever. And I said what was on my mind at that time, of course. And in that situation, I said what I feel was the best possible answer from me at that time, of course. But when I left that situation, I thought I gave, good information. Well, I did to the best of my knowledge at that time. But me being a person that's always seeking knowledge, I listened to something. I remember I was listening to something randomly, you know what I'm saying? And it infused me with a different perspective on the situation that I had just, gave advice on. So I didn't totally change my viewpoint of it, but it did enhance it a little more, you know what I'm saying? And if I would have had this information that I just received, maybe I would have said something else. So understand that situations and people are fluid, you know what I'm saying? Don't try to hold people into boxes, you know what I'm saying? And don't let people put you in boxes if all possible. Because that's just not simply how we are as humans. We're constantly being updated, we're constantly receiving information each and every day. And that's the beautiful thing about us having this opportunity. So understand that life is a gift. Let your words be your words in that moment. Quit explaining yourself. And I know this is a positive message. I've been coming with positive messages. Of course, that's what I want to do. I want to motivate people and I want to come with positive messages, but I don't want to be looked at and put into a box of just being a positive person, because even though I have love and empathy, it can still be fuck you. And I mean that with love, you know what I'm saying? So, don't try to box me into being one type of way, because I got so many different versions or different angles of who I am, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I hope that y'all got something out of what, we discussed here tonight, and I hope it wasn't too terrible. I hope this is watchable. And hopefully we can get some clips out of it, man. But yeah, this has been another episode of To Whom It May Concern. If y'all didn't watch the last episode, as I stated at the beginning of this episode with Avenue from Words on the Ave, go check that out, man. He delivered a great message, and I know a lot of people out there could definitely appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Probably saying things that you would think, but you wouldn't necessarily say. And that's the beautiful thing about being objective about things, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. I appreciate y'all checking out this. If you stayed to the end and you're at this point, man, I hope I just want to say I appreciate y'all and stay tuned. And I hope y'all like this color scheme. I know it's a little Halloweenish. I might have to keep this in mind for later in the year around that time, for a special episode, man. But like I said, I hope y'all got something out of this, man. Quit explaining yourself. You know what I'm saying? Allow people to sit on their own feelings and deal with things however they need to deal with them. But you just continue to do you. And with that being said, we about to get up out of here. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll holler at y'all next time, man. It's Daycon reporting live from Build by Nation Studios. Salute.